All right, so we've almost finished filling this pier. We've already got it leveled. We've got it set at the right height. And then we're reinforcing this with rebar. These are 5-foot stakes. We drove them in. These holes are between 2 and 3 feet deep to get to the subsoil layer. That was the harder rock, sandy loam, clay. We've got a lot of fine sand up on the top layer. So we just got to the bottom layer between 2 and 3 feet to that layer of subsoil, and then we drove these stakes a little bit in, about 6 inches to a foot in, depending on the holes. As it goes downhill, we had to drive them in less. Further uphill, we had to drive them in more, just because of how the levels worked out. And then, we just had these 4 small pieces. These are 8-inch pieces. Want to get a close-up of that? These are 8-inch pieces, about, give or take, and we just wired them together to create a little form in there, and then that's just going to give us a really strong foundation. Alright, so we have some concrete in this hole. We're going to go through leveling the pier. We're using a laser level and one of these. So first I'm going to just get our level with this, so you can see on here it's high. So we just kind of wiggle it down till it's getting close. So what I want to do now is I want to get this thing out, get this guy level. We go across one axis and we turn it, and then we level it on that axis. Alright, that looks pretty good there. Just go through iterations of this, get it level. Alright, now check this, it's still high. We're going to push it down a little bit more, check it again. Alright, now it's just a hair low. The laser level is very, very sensitive. I put it on the most sensitive point because we want it to be as accurate as possible. But whenever we adjust it, we move it, we have to double check it. And then, so we go through this process and we refine it, and we dial it in, and get it perfect. And then we put a little bit more concrete in. And then we need to chuck it again after we put another bit of concrete. So we put the first bit of concrete in the hole because these holes are too deep. The form, if it went all the way down to the bottom of the hole, it's much lower than it needs to be. So we pour the concrete in first enough so we can the form can sit on the concrete, and then we can dial it in. So Ellie's poking the cement. After we pour it in, you want to agitate it and get it to settle, get air bubbles out of it. Stab it with a piece of rebar. You can use a shovel or all sorts of different means. You just want to make sure it settles in real good into the pier. When we've been setting these, we're just tipping out of the concrete mixer into a bucket and then into our pier. And then we just have a little bit more control that way. It's not as messy. So we like doing that. Just a quick pro tip when using a concrete mixer and cutting your bags open. We've been cutting them in the middle here, just with a regular old drywall blade, and then kind of lift it up. Now you have 2 halves. This is a lot easier to kind of wrangle into the into the mixer. And then, you know, we're using an old feed bag. You can use a trash bag or a tarp, so that, you know, when you have the concrete spill, you can just, you know, reuse that. So doing a little bit of finish work at the top of the pier now, just working it with a trowel. And ideally, it'd be good if you had a trowel that could, a big one that can cover the whole thing, but I only have this little one, so that's what I'm going to work with. And you know, you really want to make sure, you know, I kind of will jiggle it a little bit. It's like jello almost. To kind of, really want to make sure you get these edges nice and filled out. This part of it is really critical to getting a nice smooth finish. And I'll show you in just a second how we really make it a smooth finish. Doing a more of a rough coat right now, and then I can work it smoother and smoother and smoother as I continue to work it. So I would work this a little bit more, but for the sake of the video, let's go over to this pier. I'm going to show you. So this is one that I've already worked. This was the first pass. I made it real smooth. It's still setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of this water. I'm just going to throw a little bit of water on there. People use spray bottles. I don't need much. And then I'm going to work it again. And this is how you can get a really smooth finish. And I don't really think it needs a whole lot at this point, but I just wanted to throw that out there. If you wanted to make them real nice and smooth, you can work them even more this way. But they don't need to be perfect. I wanted to review the work that we did on our piers real quick. So let's just take a walk through and look at all these piers. This one we set, and there was a rainstorm coming in, so it's a little weird looking, but I think it's structurally just fine. That one was looking great. You know, that surface work at the end, that one's looking good. Really goes a long way. That one's looking good. It's looking good. Looking good. And then what are we at? Oh, what's going on over here? So this is the very first one that we did. You can see it's kind of uneven. We did a little bit too much water in this mix. We were in a hurry. After digging all these holes, we were tired. It was late in the day, and we were a little sloppy. So this actually sunk when we came in the next day. It had sunk some because of all that extra water and gotten wobbly. So we actually set the other piers to that height because it had sunk. Over here, we had, the same day that we did the first one, we did this one. We set the bottom of this one, but we didn't fill it up, and so we set it at a different level, and so this was the level that we wanted to go with, and we ended up not needing this extra cardboard. So we're just going to cut that just with a dry, just a regular knife, and it won't be a problem. And then the other thing I was going to say is all the dirt that we got out from the hole, we just spread out in this area, and we want to put vapor barrier down at a certain point, and so we want underneath the house to be relatively smooth. We didn't want like big hills and then dips and all that. And then if the whole pad underneath the house is just a little bit higher than the area surrounding it, that's going to be better for drainage as well. The last thing I wanted to say is that, you know, we we're going for a mix of, you know, getting it done and getting it done pretty good, but we could have gone through a lot more. You know, we could have put bigger footers on, we could have put gravel underneath, there could have been more we could have done to make these foundation piers even better, but it's just a balancing act of how good do you want it to be versus, you know, the time, money, energy you have towards getting it up. This is just a 16 by 32 cabin, so we don't need to go over the top with it. I'm expecting to, you know, level this, and we'll talk about that more later, and then probably in another year do some modifications and adjustments to that level as well. So I'm, you know, just accepting that that's going to be part of the case, but I think that these piers are going to be more than enough for the foundation of this little cabin that we're putting in.